Welcome back to another episode of Your Daily Real Estate. Hope you're having a good day. I just had another conversation with a great agent. We went over nurturing and we thought, I took some notes. So if you need the notes, let me know. I called it, just a side note, the power of nurturing, turning leads into lifelong clients. This agent does extremely well with their online leads and leads that are ready to purchase now. What they're having a challenge with is the long-term lead. So number one, I sent them the book, Real Estate Prospecting. That's my book, right? It's on Audible, by the way. And I said, read this because I actually go through this whole process with HOP. And if you're not familiar with HOP, read the book, HOP. But for this one, I said, you've got to move away from lead acquisition to building meaningful relationships, because real estate is all about building relationships at every single level. And you've got to continue to grow that relationship at those different levels, because we have opportunities to either keep on impressing people at these different levels, or we may drop the ball and they will think, well, maybe Tristan wasn't as great as we thought, right? And those levels come at different points. Yes, this agent's really good at those brand new leads. They're really good at that process. But in the longer term process, they're probably not getting emails. They're not getting the right notifications by text. They're not getting the right notifications through the auto emails for property. They're not getting the right retargeting messages, right? And especially with the rules changing up now, and you're having all of this automation go out. A lot of this is coming back to one-on-one. So who is going to be making these calls for your database if it's not you? Is it an ISA that's hand dialing? Hopefully you have systems in place to retarget and bring them back to you so that you don't have to worry about that, right? But look, here are the things that I told this amazing agent. I asked, he's got a team. I said, well, why do you think most of the agents on your team are failing or not really getting to where they want to be? And he said, well, I think I've trained them to, and this is an honest conversation, right? Because I think I've trained them to go for the lowest hanging fruit. And so they haven't been trained to build these relationships longer term. I said, great. That's very astute of you. I think you're right on this point, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to train them to build relationships from the very beginning. And building a relationship, if you change the term, if you change that mentality, you know that every time you're talking to them, it's not about closing them. It's about providing value. That was number one. Key number one, let's do a better job of providing real value every time we get to connect with them. And if it's a two-way communication, like a phone call where we're talking to them, a text, right? Be prepared to offer value at the end of the conversation and during the conversation as well. So that was number one. Number two, the systems you have in place right now, Mr. Amazing Agent, they are absolutely great for getting the most out of the leads right now. Your long-term nurture and communication is terrible. So here's what we're going to need. We're going to need you to add an email newsletter that goes out and starts separating who you're sending these emails out to. Is it those longer-term nurture people? What's that messaging going to be? Right, for buyers, for sellers, if they closed, what does that look like? Are they getting the right emails to give them value locally? Give them value about purchasing if they are going to purchase in the future? Just give them general value about where the real estate market is heading. What does that look like? And when you reach out to them, it's not just checking in. It's giving them value about where the market is. And I'll give you a short one that we talked a little bit ago. But if these are past clients and you know they own a home, one of the things that you're reaching out to them for is going to be once a year saying, hey, I've got the value check-in for the year, right? And I've got your value at Mr. Mrs. Joe. I've got your value at $565,000. Is that about right? Or maybe it's a little too low or too high? What do you think? Right? It's a simple text that goes out, all value driven. Why? Because it's giving them exactly what they want. If they own a home, they want to make sure that it's growing in value, or at least they know where it's at value wise. And you're leading with that. So we look at ours and say, what are you doing that's value driven? We do that consistently, and I said the same thing to this gentleman. Next, you've got to upgrade your tools. I said, what tools do you currently have that you're using? Or more importantly, what tools do you currently have that you're not using, that they're just sitting there? A lot of this can be automated. So we looked at a few things. We looked at his CRM, number one. We looked at, is his team using AI to be able to create better value-driven content? Sometimes they can't think on the fly, right? So yes, I showed him Gamma, right? Gamma was great. And then what are you doing? I said, as far as creating a sense of connection outside of your normal emails, texts, and calls. What does retargeting look like? Because you're doing retargeting, but are you retargeting the right way? In fact, have you looked at even doing remember this is a bigger team, have you looked at doing some commercials that are on Hulu, that are on Peacock? These great videos that you do, they don't go anywhere. They kind of just sit there, and you've been wasting that much money instead of having to recreate these videos that go nowhere. Maybe it's about time you actually use them to send them to a great place that can get more views, right? And sometimes it's a brand play, and sometimes it's a nurture brand long-term play, which is more like marketing, right? That's where marketing came from. But the idea behind this is to offer a change, to offer value through the opportunities that you get to connect with the consumer. And it comes down to what tech you're using. What is that? And then how are you using the tech that you currently have? That's a question I asked, and we went through. He is going to get rid of 3 things, and I won't tell you what they are because they're just specific to him. I think it's a good piece of tech, just not for him. And I will look at you and say, well, the one thing that stood out for me that can stand out for you here is, are you currently using retargeting? What does that look like in your world? And if you are, I'm going to challenge you and say, hey, you're probably not retargeting them with the most optimal messages. What are those? What's that messaging that keeps going over and over? Because I've also seen some agents do a terrible job. They have retargeting, but then it's the same message over and over. And you've got to change it up every 3 weeks to a month so that it's a little bit different. In fact, you've got to have quite a few different ones so it circulates through. So I'm going to challenge you to take a look at that and say, hey, are you retargeting? If you are, what is your messaging? Because you've got to continually improve that. Anyway, that was a call I thought I'd share with you. Have an awesome day.